They were the faceless enforcers of the Galactic Empire. With their white armor and blaster rifles, they made every rebel second-guess their life choices. From the capture of Princess Leia to the Battle of Endor, the Empire's stormtroopers were ever present. Hi, I'm Alex, and welcome to Star Wars Relics. Today we're taking a look at the Kenner Stormtrooper, a figure that became a must-have in any Star Wars collection. Unfairly mocked as poor shots, but thanks to one scene, no amount of Stormtroopers would ever be enough. When we are introduced to the Stormtroopers, they are literally exploding onto the screen. They break into the Tantive 4 and begin a furious shootout with the crew. From the moment the Stormtroopers begin their insertion, they are relentless and soon take control of the Tantive 4. This brave Stormtrooper will be the last trooper we see hit anything until Return of the Jedi. The Stormtroopers are tasked with recovering the escape pod, where they determined that droids had been on board the escape pod. Roadblocks are set up, and with the help of spies and collaborators, the Stormtroopers are constantly hot on the heels of our heroes. Once the Millennium Falcon is brought onto the Death Star, we see that Stormtroopers are everywhere. Once the Empire becomes aware of our heroes, the Stormtroopers begin to relentlessly hunt them down, resulting in some of the most exciting moments in the movie, including the detention block shootout and Luke and Leia swinging across the chasm. The last time we see any Stormtroopers in action, they're trying to prevent our heroes from escaping the Death Star. Stormtroopers don't contribute much until we get to Bespin and the Empire Strikes Back, where they help capture most of our heroes. Although they lost custody of Chewie, Leia, and 3PO, it took a double cross from Lando to make it happen. The rest of the way, the Stormtroopers are chasing our heroes, making their escape exciting. After Vader's return to the Executor, we do not see any Stormtroopers anymore. The Return of the Jedi kicks off with Vader's arrival on the second Death Star and this 18-member honor guard of Stormtroopers. And then at the 38-minute mark, what is arguably the grandest scene in the original trilogy, the Emperor arrives on the Death Star. We finally see some Stormtroopers finally doing some Stormtrooper stuff when Luke turns himself in. Things really take off once the Empire springs its trap on Endor and the Stormtroopers are everywhere. During the Battle of Endor, we finally see Stormtroopers hitting enemies. This one hits R2 and this one hits Leia. The Stormtroopers that are sent to help hunt down the fleeing rebels are the last time we see them on Endor. The two Stormtroopers fleeing the hangar are the last time we see them on screen. The Stormtroopers do their job spectacularly. They're faceless, fearless, and they come in endless numbers. They look absolutely awesome, and it has turned out that their look has turned out to be timeless. Their look is so iconic that you would struggle to find someone who would not be able to connect them to Star Wars. Their reputation as marksmen has taken quite a hit over the years, but this is mostly due to that there's nobody ever around that they can actually hit. Quite frankly, they would have really benefited with some of these guys on the Heroes team. But to me, they absolutely deliver on their fearsome reputation. If I could go back in time and give George Lucas one tip about his Stormtroopers, the advice I'd give him would be start a Stormtrooper boot camp. You can tell right off the bat that a lot of the Stormtroopers are doing their own thing and there's virtually no synchronizations among them, which is really too bad. But it's something he would definitely fix later on. The image on the card is from the Death Star, and it is just before Luke and Leia swing across the chasm. The image has actually been heavily hairbrushed, and the entire background has been removed. It is just the Stormtroopers against an empty void. The image was used across all 5 card versions. However, when it came to the Tri-Logo version, they tweaked it a little bit. They removed the second Stormtrooper and they actually decided to return some of the background back to the card. I actually like the image a lot. It's clean, it's iconic, and it's actually from the movie. Judging by some of the other cards, we could have gotten something a lot worse than we actually did. Personally, I probably would have picked a picture where they're not on the receiving end of things, but that's just me. I probably would have gone with something maybe on the Tantive 4 or when they're guarding the Falcon, just something where you get a better view of them. But overall, I like it. It's good. The sculpt of the helmet actually includes all the important elements and details. However, I do have some issues. Number one for me is that the helmet isn't deep enough. If you look at it in side profile, this becomes painfully obvious. I'm also really disappointed that the head is molded directly onto the body. This means that there is no head articulation. And although we didn't mind at the time, looking back on it, this really feels like an unforced error. Other than that, some of the markings for the vents and the blue lines at the side of the helmet are missing, but I think that is more due to the limitations of the technology at the time. For a figure from 1978, the Stormtrooper's costume details are actually pretty spot on. The costume details are all there and the proportionality is exceptional. It all works really, really well together. It is without a doubt and unmistakably a Stormtrooper. For me, the biggest inaccuracy is in the lower torso area, where a lot more of the black body glove should be visible. If they had included more of this, it probably would have given more of a feel that the trooper is actually wearing an armor. On the plus side, I love that they kept the legs asymmetrical. It would have been so easy to make them look symmetrical, and I think it really speaks to the artist's desire to make a very accurate product to what they would see on the screen. When it comes to the Stormtrooper's blaster, it feels like a case of close enough. It's like they brought the artist into a room, showed him a couple of reference pictures, took them away, and then made him work from memory. And what we get is a blaster that is probably about 60 to 70% accurate from the movie version. They nailed the general shape, scope, and muzzle of the blaster. However, for some weird reason, the clip ended up on the wrong side of the blaster, and probably inspired by Earth weapons, the artist included a clip that goes in front of the trigger, which is absolutely not present on the Empire's E11 blaster. In spite of its quirks and shortcomings, it worked. We accepted it without question, and it became the Empire's go-to blaster of choice. Functionally, it is the equivalent of Earth's assault rifle. It is the jack of all trades and the master of none. Wow, this turns out to be way worse than I remember. It turns out the figure is only good for one thing, and that is point that blaster. The standing issues of the Stormtrooper actually go very, very deep and are structural. If you look at the legs, they are made up of a front half and a back half. And in the case of the Stormtrooper, the back half tends to be just a fraction of a bit shorter. Without the support of the back half, the Stormtrooper tends to topple over backwards. If you want him to stand, he has to shift all of his weight to the front half of the foot. And that makes him look hunched over. You can tell that Kenner was aware of this. There are 5 versions of the legs, and you can tell that they were clearly chasing a fix. Making matters worse, the Stormtrooper has a relatively small footprint, and the foot orientation is probably not doing it any favors. And what we end up with is a figure that will not stand straight with its arms at its side. Amazingly enough, I don't remember this being an issue. When it comes to the Stormtrooper's weapon arm, it's a mixed bag. It does one thing amazingly and it does the other thing awkwardly. First, the amazing. When you put a blaster in its hand, it really wants to hold on to it. It will not drop it. I have a carded Stormtrooper, and after over 4 decades, he is still holding onto his blaster. That is impressive. You can tell that the artist put a lot of care into sculpting the hand and making sure that the weapon fits. As for the awkward, it's the wrist. The hand is tilted too far down, causing you to have to raise the arm to an unnaturally stiff-looking position in order for him to properly aim. This is technically not a deal breaker, however, it does stand out, where just a little slight raise of the wrist would have given him a more natural pose. This channel will always be free. However, if you're looking for a way to support me, my wife and I started Fresh Solutions Therapy, an online therapy practice where we have a lot of experience helping people with their anxiety. If you've got something that's stopping you from achieving the things that you want to achieve or doing the things that you want to do, I strongly encourage you to reach out to our team. They are absolutely excellent. We offer free 15-minute consultations, and I have no doubt that they can help you. Check us out at freshsolutionstherapy.ca. I would love to see the reference material the artists were given. I have a feeling it would answer a lot of questions. What I've noticed about the early Kenner figures is that when the artists were given the details, they worked very hard to include them in the action figures, as is the case in the Stormtrooper. You can really see the effort. I'm genuinely grateful that the figure does such an amazing job holding and pointing at its weapon, even if it's at the expense of a natural pose. I do have some issues though. Balance is very hit or miss with this figure, and you can tell they were working on it through pretty much the entire run. But at the time, none of us cared. We were all grateful to get a Stormtrooper. And let's be honest, they have that timeless look, instantly recognizable, endlessly merchandisable. In my Star Wars universe, the Stormtroopers were never the bad guys. They weren't the faceless villains, they were the elite. When you look that cool, you really gotta be on the team with the good guys. They were more like my galaxy's law enforcement. They would set things right. They would kick whatever button needed to be kicked. Growing up, I eventually had 4 of them. That's them. They were always very busy. They weren't just in the background for me. They were Vader's personal honor guard and his backup pretty much wherever he went. Even with their stiff pose and limited articulation, they had presence. And thanks to Return of the Jedi, no amount of Stormtroopers would ever be enough for any of us. Now it's your turn. I want to hear about your Stormtrooper memories in the comments. And until next time, take care.